What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing my review for Godzilla Singular Point Episode 3, Tigerish. This episode's really good. I really liked this episode a lot. The music is really great in this episode. I thought it was really cool. You got like this really ominous music right at the start. Then you get some like more Showa marchy-esque music that plays during the Rodan attack that sounds a lot more like the music from the teaser trailer we got, which was awesome, and I hope that song eventually shows up. And of course you end the episode with the classic theme song. How could you not love that? I know I don't really do a play-by-play for these episodes, so I kind of missed some details. I forgot to mention that in the last episode, the Otaki crew, they built this little device to attract the Rodans, so now they're using that. This episode picks up pretty much where the last one left off, with the swarm of Rodans heading into the city. It's pretty exciting, and again, like I said, it's got this really ominous build-up. The attack is actually not really seen on screen as much as I thought it would be, because they handle it differently. First of all, the Rodans, they look much more like classic Showa Rodan, but they're a little more like zombified and scarred a little bit, or at least they appear that way. They're also smaller than the other Rodan we saw in the last episode, but they are still called Rodan. There's everything, it's just like they're Rodans also, it's also Rodans. So I guess all of them are Rodan. The main portion of this episode, which I wasn't expecting, but I rather enjoyed, centers around Yun and Havel being trapped inside this little house with this like schoolgirl and her coach after a bus crashed. They crashed their little Ben 10 Omniverse motorcycle, and so they had to go hide out in this little bunker with this guy who crashed a bus. And there's just a flock of Rodans attacking. Meanwhile, you got Otaki and then another schoolgirl and the bus driver stuck on the bus. And so it's like, how are we gonna get out of this? I really liked the fact that they had to resort to using their wits. They had to outsmart Rodan. I think it's really cool. I really like Yun. I actually find him to be a very cool protagonist. I think his very blank personality is interesting. I like it a lot, actually. I think his blank personality actually really works for the show. I think he's very interesting. I love the logical approach, and I always like seeing people outsmart the enemy. And I really appreciate the way they do it. They like build these bow and arrow shots that they can fire off that will sound a frequency that will make the Rodans mad, and the Rodans will go chase it. And of course, then they get to their little motorcycle and they get to lead the Rodans away from everybody and save the day. So there's a good hero moment as well. Kind of reminds me of the trick they used in order to lure Godzilla around in 1984. And it could be intentional, because this whole show is just littered with fan service, like everywhere. Like there's masers in the background of this episode. You know, in the last episode we had Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, a nod to that. That's not even Godzilla. There's like Zone Fighter in the outro. There's like a really, just a lot of deep cuts and references to everything in here, so I wouldn't be surprised. We also have this new robot that drives around a little bit. Pero basically commandeers a robot and is like, I'm gonna drive this thing around. It's a little bit of an awkward subplot because May comes across as a little self-obsessed, considering her city is being attacked by Rodans and the only thing she's worried about is her laundry. But anyways, Pero commandeers a robot from the Otaki factory and goes driving around, and the robot reminds me a lot of the one from the Godzilla 98 cartoon. I don't know what that one was called, but they kind of have like similar looks and vibes to them. Pero does battle with a Rodan at the end. That's pretty cool. I remember that from the trailer. And then you get this like really spooky scene where the sky just turns all gray and all the Rodans die off. My guess is probably, you know, like the Rodans come up from out of the water and there's all this red mist, and they say it's like red sand. So I would assume that the reason the water is red is because the red sand is kind of washing off them. Meanwhile, the Rodans themselves, when they're like flying through the air, all the red sand is coming off them, and then probably once the red sand is depleted, I think they're gonna die. But I guess maybe not, because some of them die and then like it rains on them and then the red sand washes back into the ocean, which I think is going to be very disastrous. So that's the main portion of the episode. We don't actually really spend much time with Sato at all. We barely get to see him, which is a little disappointing because I actually really like that character and I'm very invested in that storyline. I want to know more about the Godzilla skeleton. The only thing we really learn about it is that Godzilla's skeleton also is connected to the red sand. This episode does feature the introduction of Tachihiro Kai. I'm really excited to see more of this character. I think he's going to be very cool. And he introduces a new element. So I guess there's something called like archetype, where they have this little cube that is a new element, a never before discovered element or something. It's kind of hard to understand. It's like an inverted flower that I'm assuming comes from a fantasy universe, because there's a lot of talk about these alternate universes where it's just fantasy. It doesn't really follow the rules of our universe, and there's other elements that exist in the fantasy universe and they are theoretically possible in our universe. And so it's possible that maybe they're coming into our universe, and there's just a lot of talk about like imaginary monsters and imaginary this and imaginary that. This is one of those imaginary things where they have this new archetype flower that's inverted or something, and I don't know, I'm interested to see what they do with that. That's of course from Dr. Lee, who we have yet to meet, but I have a feeling she's going to show up in the next episode. Lots of mystery, lots of intrigue, and a pretty awesome finale. So I'm wondering if the sand that washes into the ocean is what maybe birthed this thing, because it kind of seems like the Rodans were evolving themselves. They're on their own evolution path. Maybe they evolved into something new, or I actually think they're not really related. I think they're going to be just like sidekicks, because we keep seeing that picture of the ancient Godzilla, and then we see like the Rodans flying around him, and so they're like, oh, this monster Godzilla, when he shows up, there's all these Rodans around him, and so I think they're just going to be like related, but I don't think they're going to be the same thing. Interestingly, Godzilla shows up at the end of this episode, but it's not Godzilla. It plays the Godzilla theme song like it's Godzilla, but it's Titanosaurus. So I'm assuming this is going to confirm the fan theory that I've heard a lot about. I've heard a lot of fan theories about that Godzilla is going to be on an evolution course throughout the show, and that would make sense given the fact that it seems like Rodan is doing the same thing. It seems like Rodan is evolving, so it looks like Godzilla is doing the same. And if this is Godzilla in Titanosaurus form, that's going to be interesting, and a lot of theories stemmed from that when the trailer came out because they both have maple leaf dorsal fins. I could totally see that being the case. It'll be very weird. It'll be kind of Shin Godzilla-esque, but it'd be just interesting to see Godzilla as another monster, you know? Godzilla's never taken the shape of another famous monster we know of. It'd be like if Kamata-kun was Destroya. It'd just be like strange, you know, that he's suddenly one monster and then he turns into the next. But I'm interested to see what comes of it. Of course, they do play the Godzilla theme, so I kind of do think that this is going to be Godzilla in some sort of early adolescent form. They also say like the ancient Godzilla, and it doesn't really look like Godzilla. The painting that they have looks a lot more like the Titanosaurus we see at the end of this episode, so could be. Also, like I totally called it in my last video. I totally thought Titanosaurus would show up in this episode. He didn't do the jumping over the ship thing like I thought he was going to do. He'll probably do that at the start of the next episode. But it was cool to see him show up, and I love the Ifukube music coming back. Other than that, I don't think I have too much else to talk about this episode. I really liked the action. I thought it was very intense, and you know, I thought it was very well done. It was super suspenseful, and I always love seeing characters outsmart the enemy because, I don't know, I just like it when characters can't beat the bad guy without thinking smarter than them. I think the show does a pretty good job showing the weight of the monster attacks. I like all the social media reactions, and I like all the news reports, and I'm interested about all the biology stuff. You know, these are not monsters from their dimension, and so it'll be interesting to see exactly how far they go into this sort of multiverse, parallel universe idea. I'm curious for sure. I'm not expecting Godzilla to show up. I know that a lot of people have said that Godzilla doesn't show up for a long time. I don't know if he's in the show currently where it's currently airing. I don't even know what episode they're currently on. I think like 9 episodes are out, maybe 8. I don't know. I have no spoilers, so I've got no idea. The only thing I know is that apparently it takes a while to get to Godzilla, and I can see that in this episode. They're not rushing into Godzilla, and I like that. I would prefer them to not. I'm more interested in everything else going on than I am in getting to Godzilla simply because it's Godzilla. But anyways, that'll do it for this one. Have you guys seen this episode? What did you think of it down below? I hope you've seen these episodes, considering these are spoiler reviews. It'd be kind of insane to watch these without actually having seen the episodes. You're just ruining it for yourself. But what are your thoughts on the episode? Comment below and let me know. Thank you to all my patrons for the support. I really appreciate you guys. If you want to join the Patreon, linked in the description, and that's also how you get access to the Discord where you can chat with me. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man, out.